Everybody, Manny here once again. Welcome to DFS Zone, your source for daily fantasy sport lineup advice for the NFL and the NBA. Got a brand new video for you guys today. I'm going to discuss cash plays for this weekend's slate, week 6 of the NFL. But before I get started, like always, guys, I appreciate you guys drop a like on the video. And if you're new to the channel, you have not become a community member yet of DFS Zone, please subscribe down below. Turn on your post notifications. This way you don't miss out on any of my NFL and NBA lineup advice videos and live shows. I conduct a live show for the NFL every Saturday night at 7 p.m. We discuss the entire slate, all the plays I gave you during the week, as well as we will discuss any possible value plays that has arisen over the last few days due to injuries or whatever. We'll discuss 4 o'clock slate. We'll discuss the Sunday, Monday slate. We'll discuss everything and anything pertaining to this week, week 6 of the NFL. And I will be conducting live shows 4 times a week, at least minimum, for the NBA, 1 hour before lock. So you'll get to see a live lineup advice video during the day. And then in the evening, you'll be able to come back and we'll be able to discuss a little bit more of the actual slate just before lock, just in case we want to make any changes in any of our lineups. So you don't want to miss out on any of that. Please subscribe down below. Become a community member of DFS Zone. Become a DFS Zoner. Put on your post notification. This way you don't miss out on any of that good stuff. With that all being said, some cash plays this week. I'm going to try to give you 1 or 2 pieces of advice per position, pretty much. At quarterback, obviously there's some safe plays this week. I mean, Ben Roethlisberger, would be a good play here, 8,500. For cash, I got him. You know, I think he's in a good situation. I mean, going up against Cincinnati, he's had great success against them. I mean, I'm not going to pay 8,500 for him. I think this is a great game. I think this is a great game to target. As far as cash, he could be safe. I mean, he's, averaging about 23 a game. I would think he's okay. He's got a low floor, as far as fantasy points-wise, 12. I mean, for me, as far as quarterback this week, I'm really loving, for cash play, definitely Deshaun Watson. I think he's been just pretty consistent. He has a good upside. He's capable of getting you 30. I mean, just look at these numbers. He's 8,100 here on Fanduel. He's 6,400 on DK. What I'm loving, 324.2 yards per game. That's over 300 yards a game during the course of the season. That's very impressive. 9 TDs, averaging 23.2 fantasy points per game. And, of course, like I always say here, guys, I always look and gauge this as one of the things that I look for first. And he's somewhere in that area, at least 4 straight games. He's averaging pretty much 22 plus over the last 4 games. And he's had one 32 fantasy point game. And then look at all the other positive things, man. Over 300 yards, 4 games in a row. Nearly had 400 yards in the last 3 games. Loving 40-plus pass attempts per game. Then you got to love the fact that he's throwing at least 1 touchdown on average every single game this year. He's had 2. He has had multiple touchdowns in 3 games. The only little, bummer here is that he's thrown 5 interceptions, at least 1 per game. He definitely got to clean that up. If he cleans that up, obviously it's more fantasy point opportunities for him and for us. The other big positive thing is that he is a dual threat quarterback. He's talking about 10 rushes last week for 40 yards. He's been averaging at least 38, 39 if you combine this all together. 39 maybe rushing yards per game. He's the kind of quarterback, when he has these openings, he is capable of running just as good as a running back, and that's the beauty of him. He extends the play well, so it's going to be a tough task for Buffalo here. Buffalo is not bad. He's going up against Buffalo. He has, I forgot to mention, he also has 1 rushing TD here. He has 3 fumbles, so he's got to clean up the turnovers. But other than that, I think he's in a good spot. Buffalo is not too bad. Coming in 11th in pass defense this year, 235 yards per game, coughing up 8 touchdowns. Rushing quarterbacks have had 22 rushes, 89 yards, 0 touchdowns thus far against Buffalo's defense. They're coughing up 16.9 DK and 16.3 Fanduel points to quarterbacks. But again, Buffalo has faced a couple of good quarterbacks. They faced Rodgers, lost that game. They faced Cousins, they lost that game. They faced Phillip Rivers and the Chargers, they lost that game. Rodgers obviously is a very good lateral movement quarterback, extends the plays by just moving around left and right in there between the tackles. Cousins pretty much the same, will scramble when he needs to. Rivers is not a good scrambler, but he will go if he has to. You haven't faced somebody like Deshaun Watson, who's a dual threat quarterback that can beat you with his arm and can beat you with his feet. tuck it in and run and get good yardage, 20, 30 yards. He can burst. He's very explosive in the open field. I think this is a big game plan and a big task for Buffalo this week. Definitely love him. I also love the factors that he's at home. He has his 12th man there with his fans there in Houston. I love him here. I think he's going to be a fine cash play. I don't see him getting any less than 22, 23. And again, if he gets another touchdown, obviously, if he gets 2 touchdowns a game, you can pencil him in for a high 28 to almost 30, 32 fantasy points. Fine play. I think for cash, you're safe with Deshaun Watson. We go over to the running backs. At running back, man, it's like a no-brainer. You got to have some consideration, some exposure to Todd Gurley. He's just the best running back in the league. He's 9,500 here on FanDuel. He's 10,000 on DK. Now, again, on DK, you could play him if you're willing to come down. I can see myself playing on DK and paying down at quarterback. There's a couple good options at quarterback where you can pay down at 5, 6K, and you could pay up for Gurley and make sure you lock him in. He's got a good opportunity. Look, Todd Gurley has been absolutely just been wonderful. 83 yards per game, 9 touchdowns, 26 fantasy points per game, 9,500, like I said. Look at the numbers here. Is at 26 or better? Yeah, he had 31 last week. He's pretty good for about 22, 23. And look at his floor, pretty much as far as fantasy points, is 22. So, I mean, and that's like better than guys like even Christian McCaffrey, who hasn't been able to get in the end zone. He would be in the same category as Gurley. But what you got to look at for Gurley is look at all the touches and targets he gets. I mean, 27 here, 23 here, 29 here, 22 here, 25 here. I mean, he's getting tons and tons of ball carries and targets out of the backfield. He's going up against Denver. Denver's 30th in rush defense. Denver just gave up 200-plus yards to Isaiah Crowell of the Jets, my New York Jets. Crowell had a field day. The game before that, they faced Kareem Hunt. He put up 121 yards on this defense. So definitely there is an opportunity for Todd Gurley, even though they're going to Mile High and they're going over to Denver. And the other thing they also got to point out here is there's a couple injuries with the Rams. Let's say there is no Cooper Kupp or there's no Cooks or both. There's going to be even more exposure to Todd Gurley and to Robert Woods. I love the whole matchup, especially one of those guys are down. You definitely got to consider that Todd Gurley is going to get a few more touches and a few more carries. And considering that Denver can't stop the run, he's going to run between the tackles. I mean, he had 22 carries last week. I could see him getting 22 again this week. And he has great upside. I could see him getting 30. I can see him getting 35 fantasy points this week. It's just truly amazing. He has had 7 touchdowns. I mean, he's been fabulous. There's not much really to say. It's a matter of who is going to defend him. And right now, Denver's defense, as far as defending the rush, is not very good at all. So definitely Todd Gurley is a really safe bet here. You got to pay up for him, but I could see value in other areas. You could probably get value at tight end for sure, paying down. And you could pay down a little bit at quarterback, and you could squeeze in a Todd Gurley, especially on DK where he is 10K. I am going to speak about one or two guys. Look, and again, Gordon's in a good spot. McCaffrey's in an excellent spot against Washington. I think McCaffrey is so consistent. He's 17.4 fantasy points, averaging 82 yards per game, only 1 touchdown, and that 1 touchdown was receiving. Now, granted, if he can get in the end zone, and that's the only drawback, that's the only thing that's hurting Christian McCaffrey. He's getting tons of target. Let me explain this. When it comes to running backs, when I look for cash, and I'm not a cash player, you guys that have been following me know I'm a GPP player. I look to try to win the big ones, win the $200, $300, the $2,000, the $5,000, the $10,000, the $20,000, you name it. I'm looking for the big bucks. Once in a while, I throw in a cash game. I should be doing it more often than I do. I normally don't. But the bottom line is the best advice I can give you guys, and this is more so for new DFS NFL players. And when we get into NBA next week, I will discuss some of the strategies and some of the actual good things you should be looking for and doing on a regular basis to help you be a better player at an NBA DFS. But for the NFL, as far as these you got to love dual threat running backs. I mentioned that very first week of the season. I love dual threat running backs because of the factors that they can hurt you, not only with their feet between the tackles, but they can hurt you also, in check downs, getting behind the defenses, all right, in the zones, running all the different slot positions, and being able to go wide once in a while and go for a deep pass if they're that explosive with as far as speed is concerned. You know, you got to love these guys that get the most important thing you're looking for is when you're looking at players like this, you're looking to see, are they an integral part of the offense? Are they really a big part of the offense? Christian McCaffrey, just like Todd Gurley, is the same way. He is going to get a lot of targets. As you can see, he gets targeted from the backfield as a receiver, and he gets targeted as a ball carrier between the tackles. He can hurt you in either or. So when you see this amount of usage, you definitely got to give him consideration. In a cash game, you're looking for touches, as many touches as you possibly can, even if he doesn't get in the end zone like he hasn't been. But if he does get in, that's an extra bonus. He's averaging 17.4 fantasy points. If he was getting a touchdown a game, he would be getting 23, 24 fantasy points on average. And he will be right up there with Todd Gurley, who's averaging 26. So Christian McCaffrey is a great play, and the only problem here is that he's not getting in the end zone because when it gets to the red zone, Carolina loves to just give it to Cam Newton, and he normally likes to target Greg Olsen, who more than likely may be back this week, so it may hurt Christian a little bit. But I think Christian McCaffrey, great safe play here if you're going to go somewhere else. All right, remember, you want to get as many touches as you can. Another guy, obviously I'm on Connor this week. He's one of my running backs this week. He could be a safe play as well, but I think he's more GPP. The other guy I'll talk about, these two here guys are definitely in good spots. I think Mixon is a much better spot. I love Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon, 7,500. He's 7,500 also on DK, so he's pretty expensive on DK. They know because of the PPR and the chances that he could be close. As you can see, he's 90 rushing yards per game, so he's almost a 100 club guy on a regular basis. You could get a lot of extra points over there, and that's one of the reasons why Fanduel prices him up like that. So Fanduel Draftkings priced him up like that. So 75 here, he's a great price on Fanduel, obviously pretty expensive on DK. But in a great matchup, Cincinnati at home versus Pittsburgh, their arch enemy. They will love to beat Pittsburgh. This is a big game for Cincinnati, and this kid needs to be involved, just like I said about James Conner in my running backs video. Very important game for Cincinnati. If they win, they go to 5-1. They'll have a 3-game lead on Pittsburgh. That will probably put Pittsburgh on the brink of being eliminated because it's going to be really tough unless Cincinnati just completely falls over and dies over the next several weeks. And I don't think that's going to happen if they go to 5-1. But this is a big game, as well as is a big game for Pittsburgh. This is one of the reasons why this is the most intriguing game of the week, or at least on Sunday in the early slate. And it's going to be one of the highest implied total games of the week as well. It's going to be a shootout. It's going to be a matter if Joe Mixon is going to outrun James Conner, or vice versa, or both are going to have a field day on each other's defenses. Or is going to be Big Ben and Andy Dalton is going to take over and get it done with their receivers. So I'm looking forward to it. I think Joe Mixon is definitely a good cash play here. I mean, he's rushing. All right, so he's 17.2 fantasy points per game. He's another guy. If he gets a few more touchdowns a game, he's getting the use. He's getting the touches. 26 here, 22 here, pretty much 24 here. This guy is their backfield, man. This is their future, Joe Mixon. And he's very talented. 19 and 23. All right, his floor right now as far as fantasy points, I gauge it at about 9. But we know he's better than that. 17. He's had 17 or better in 2 out of the last 3 games. He's healthy. He's going to play. He's going to get a ton of touches this week in a big game like this. And I expect him. I think he's going to get over 100 yards. And I think he may have 150 all-purpose yards or better. And he's going to get a touchdown. I really, truly believe. So I think he's a great cash play for you guys as well. I'm going to have some exposure to him as well as I mentioned before with Mr. James Conner in my lineups. Going further, TJ Yeldon may be a possible play. I'm a little worried about this game because Dallas has done pretty well, but Dallas did give up 102 yards. The only one guy that scored over 100 yards against them was Chris Carson, who's one of my running backs this week that I advise you guys to play as a GPP. And I really like that. I like the factors that's all Dallas has given up. Dallas in the front, their front 5 or 6 guys, their linebackers and their front 4 are pretty solid. You know, they come in on defending 9th against the run, so they are definitely up there. A little concerned there, but Yeldon's going to get a ton of touches, and that's the only reason why I would definitely recommend him. But I think Joe Mixon, big game, at home, going against Pittsburgh, Both teams are going to go shooting it out. I think that's going to be a little bit more of an opportunity, or at least the running back just has the better opportunity to have the bigger game. TJ Yeldon here is definitely in play as well as a possible cash play. I know I'm giving a bit much there. As far as wide receivers, man, is bottom line. I mean, there's a lot of guys that are definitely in play for cash this week that'll be solid. I think AJ Green is going to be fine in this game at home against Pittsburgh, but you can't pass up Adam Thielen. It's going to sound, you know, maybe you're hearing it from other people as well on YouTube, but I mean, until somebody neutralizes him, you got to at least consider him cash. He's very consistent. He's getting more than 10 targets a game, and he's pretty much averaging 8 or 9 receptions per game. He's had over 100 yards per game in all 5 games thus far this year. Would love to see more touchdowns. Obviously, that will put him more. His fantasy point total will be higher, but 117.8 yards per game, 3 touchdowns, averaging 20 fantasy points. You get 1 touchdown, you get a multi-touchdown game. He's going to have 27 to as much as 30-plus fantasy points. He still has upside, and he's consistent. You can't pass up. He's getting, again, like I said for the running back, same thing here. If you're getting a receiver that's getting tons and tons of targets, and he's actually nailing them at 70-75% catch percentage or better, he is definitely someone to consider as a cash play. And it will be even a bonus if he is getting a touchdown per game. That's what's missing here for Thielen. But I think here, man, this matchup here, obviously the only concern is, you know, Patrick Peterson. He's one of the best corner defenders in his league. But I think he's going to definitely be all over Stephon Diggs because he has the explosive speed. He could be the big playmaker here. So I think Adam Thielen in the slot is going to be, you know, definitely should be good for his 2025 easily, at least in my opinion. All right, at tight end, not going anybody else there. Tight end, I mean, Eric Ebron has been getting tons into, again, same thing again. He's getting a lot of targets. You want targets because the more targets you get, the more possible receptions you get, and then the more yardage, and of course the possibilities of getting touchdowns, and that's all added fantasy points. So it kind of like easy to gauge, but at the same time, you have to look at what the matchups are. Well, Eric Ebron is going up against my New York Jets, and 15 targets last week against New England. Again, we have to take into account he got a lot of targets last week. Andrew Luck don't have a lot of people last week. He didn't have Hilton. Hilton more than likely is back this week. He's still hampered by a hamstring, so I don't think he's going to be 100%. But again, he's going to come out there. He's going to play. If he's 100%, good for the Colts. I think the Jets, you know, surprisingly, the Jets are pretty good defending the pass thus far the year. They're not too bad. They're like in the middle of the pack. They actually are 18th in pass defense, only 267 yards per game. But they're third. They're giving up the third least fantasy points to tight ends this year. So that's very, very good as far as defending tight ends thus far. 7.5 and 6 fantasy points per game on Fanduel. But again, they have not faced somebody who has been the main target. But again, you have to also consider, like I said, Hilton was out for a game and a half, so he benefited from those targets. It may be a little bit more down this week if T.Y. is definitely back. But I think he's a safe cash play, man. You got to. I can't think of it as he's playing the New York Jets, and that's my team. I'm thinking I got to look at it as a DFS player, giving advice to my viewers. And if you are looking for a cash play, Eric Ebron would be a cash play. $6,500 is very, very expensive. $5,400 on DK, you know, is entirely up to you. But I think, you know, if you're not going Ebron, you got to go Jared Cook. But Jared Cook is more of a GPP play. And I'm going to explain why. Obviously, as you can see here, 27 and 22. He has these sporadic moments he could have as low as 4, and he can just jump up and have a 27-point game, fantasy point game. As you can see, 20 yards, 31 and 49. Then he has 2 games where he was over 100. So he's targeted a lot by Derek Carr, and he's getting some yardage. Not enough touchdowns, all right, but not too consistent. And that's a concern. So he's more of a GPP play just simply on that. So for $100 more, take the safer play against Eric Ebron. But I'm not willing to pay that high. I'm going to give you one more tight end. I love David Njoku. And I've been telling you guys this for a couple weeks. And now that him and Baker are back, they have had 2 games under their belt, at least 2.5 games. And look what has happened here. Remember when I gave you David Njoku 2 or 3 weeks ago when I said him and Baker are going to team? Because they had a great connection over the preseason. He had 2 touchdowns in the preseason with Baker as his quarterback. He looked fabulous with Baker Mayfield as his quarterback. And I said, I love the way Cleveland has been designing this offense thus far with the pieces they put together. This kid is going to be an elite tight end. And I said this a couple of weeks ago, and it's starting they're coming to fruition right now. 7 targets 2 weeks ago against Oakland, 11 last week against Baltimore, who is a solid defense. He had 6 receptions and 5, so 18 and 11 over the last 2 games, over 120 yards. And look at it, at 10, almost a 10 spot here and 8 spot pretty much here the last 2 weeks. So he's averaging about 9 fantasy points over the last 2 weeks. That's definitely above his average for the season, and this is just going to get better. Obviously, the only thing that's missing here is the touchdowns, and it's going to come, and I would not be surprised if it happens this week. All right, they're going up against the Chargers. Pretty good matchup. They're 20th in pass defense, 270 yards per game given up against tight ends, 19 receptions, 232 yards they've given up to tight ends thus far this year, 1 touchdown. So I say he's got an opportunity if they get in the red zone. Maybe David Njoku will get off the schneid here and get finally his first touchdown thrown to him by Baker Mayfield. 10.2 DK and 7.7 Fanduel points. Excellent spot for David Njoku. I love him. I think he's a great play at 5,500 here. He is only 3,500 on DK. I think he's a fine cash play with upside. He is definitely becoming part of this offense, and I said he would be, and he is surely that is being seen here thus far over the last 2 weeks. So definitely a great another matchup. David Njoku in play. And that's basically it, guys. Those are the guys that I am considering as cash plays for you guys, DFS community out there. Guys, again, drop a like on the video, man. I greatly appreciate it. Like always, I appreciate every one of you. I thank you guys for being subscribers. If you have not subscribed to the channel and you want to continue to get your lineup advice videos, your cash plays, so on and so forth. I do literally right now 6 videos a week for the NFL, including the live show, which will be 7 videos a week for the NFL entirely for my viewers. And the NBA is going to be no different. It's going to be a lineup video every day, as well as I said before, 4 live shows per week, 1 hour before lock, so that we can make sure we make our changes and set up our lineups for the best, to give us the best possible chance to win every single night. So with that, I wish you guys a lot of luck. God bless. I'll see you guys on the next video. All right.